This happened back in 2021 when I was a sophomore at Hofstra University in Long Island, New York. I had recently just graduated with my bachelor's degree in sports media. I really enjoyed my time there as a student. There were ups and downs, but one time, it was more than just down. It was Halloween Day. It was also my favorite season of the year. I had nothing to do that night, even though it was on a Sunday. I was walking out of my dorm room to the dining hall to go and eat brunch. But as I exited my dorm room, I saw a poster of a frat house named Alpha Epsilon Pi. It was for a party that was happening tonight, and it was hung up on a bulletin board. I didn't recognize this frat house. I knew most of the frat houses on campus, but I never heard of this one. I was not doing anything that night, so I might as well go. Nighttime came around, and I dressed up in my costume and went over to the frat house. I then arrived and walked through the house's front door. Then this guy named Alex, he walked up to me and started a conversation with me. He was apparently in his frat, as he was wearing a shirt that said the fraternity's name. Now, a lot of people told me that this guy is a creepy stalker and that you should avoid him at all costs. He said hey, and I nodded at him back. As I was walking around the house, he was talking to me about something dumb, and I just ignored him. I also forgot to mention that he is the cousin of Thomas Suozzi, who is currently serving as the U.S. representative for New York 3rd Congressional District. Now back to the story. I then went to pour myself a drink. After 15 minutes, I felt extremely drunk, more drunk than I ever felt before. I said to myself, screw it, I'm out of here. I left the party out the front door and I walked all the way back to my dorm room. I came to the horror realization that somebody had spiked my drink. I had a feeling that something like this would happen to me because of how I never heard anything about this fraternity on campus. I then finally arrived to my dorm room. I walked through the door, took off my shoes and got in bed. I went under the covers and was out after that. I don't know how much time had passed after falling asleep, but I woke up to noises in my room. It sounded like my drawers were being opened and closed, more like somebody was going through them. I was in so much confusion and was still in a very woozy and drowsy state. My eyes were still adjusting as I was trying to make out what was happening. Now I knew what I saw. What I saw was that creepy stalker guy, Alex, right next to my bed. I asked him, what the hell are you doing here, man? Get the hell out of my room. I said this to him in my still very much drunk state, and I was slurring my words. He didn't even move. He just stared right at me. I then got out of my bed and was literally forcing him out of my room with all of my strength. As I was still walking, I pushed him out of the door, closed it afterwards, and this time remembering to lock it. I fell back asleep pretty quickly after that. I simply forgot to lock my door because of how drunk I was. The creep literally followed me back to my room. Only God could know what he would have done to me if I hadn't woken up. Morning then came, and I was still not able to function right. I emailed all of my professors that I will have to skip classes today because I wasn't feeling well. I made a horrible judgment call that I was going to attend that party. I shouldn't have done that if I've never heard of that frat before. I should have known that it would be very sketchy before even going there. I never reported the fraternity house or Alex to the campus life director. It wouldn't have done anything anyways, since the school can't really do anything about Greek life since it is practically off campus, and the literally well-known politician is Alex's family and has so much power. I never went to any college party again after that, at least not on Halloween. So now on Halloween, I just give out candy to trick-or-treaters. This all happened many years ago in my town, which at the time was a little town between the mountains of Catalonia, Spain. The town was a little more than a small square with a church, a park, a prison, and a school, with all the houses clustered around. The town was very proud of their school since it had been voted the best school in the province. It was the morning of October 31st, Halloween, and a class of students were doing arts and crafts in their classroom. Some were cutting skeletons out of the sheets of paper, some were painting vampire bats, and others were drawing pumpkins. The students were all aged between 8 and 9 years old. Their teacher was a beautiful young woman who had only been working at the school for only a month. While the children were having fun, preparing the Halloween decorations, the teacher turned the radio on to listen to the weather forecast. She was planning to organize an outdoor Halloween party for the kids later that day and wanted to be sure that it wouldn't rain. Suddenly, the weather forecast was interrupted with a news bulletin. This is an important announcement. A convicted murderer has escaped from the local prison and is on the loose. He is described as armed and very dangerous. Please do not attempt to apprehend him. The police will. The teacher rushed across the room and switched off the radio. She didn't want to alarm the children, but it was too late. The children had all heard the broadcast and were very frightened by the news. They knew that the prison was very close to the school. The teacher tried to reassure them and told them not to worry. A few minutes later, the school principal made an announcement over the intercom. Attention all teachers. We have been informed that the police are dealing with a very serious situation that is occurring right now in our town. All teachers are advised to lock the doors and windows of the classrooms until the police get this situation under control. I repeat, lock all doors and windows until further instructions. That is all. The teacher told the class to stay calm. She took out her key and locked the classroom door. Then she went around and closed every window, making sure that they were secure and nobody could get in. One little girl raised her hand and asked if she can go to the bathroom. The teacher didn't want to let her go, but the girl insisted. The teacher finally relented and gave her permission to go to the bathroom. After all, it was unlikely that the murderer would come to the school. She told the girl that, when she came back, she would have to give a secret knock at the classroom door. Then they would know that it was her and let her back in. The code was 3 taps and 2 scratches. Tap, 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 scratch, scratch. The girl left to go to the bathroom and the teacher locked the door behind her. To take the children's minds off the scary situation, she started telling stories. After 20 minutes had passed and the girl still had not returned, the teacher began to get worried. Suddenly, they heard footsteps in the corridor. Everybody in the classroom froze, and then they heard a noise at the door. Tap, 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 scratch, scratch. Teacher said she's back, and she sighed. She walked over, took out her key, and then she said, "What if it's not her?" She asked one of the little boys, and shivering with fright. The teacher hesitated, her key inches from the lock. Again they heard a noise at the door. Tap, 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 scratch, scratch. She said it must be her. She put the key into the door and unlocked it. Suddenly the classroom door burst open and a tall man was standing there. In his right hand, he was holding a knife. In his left hand, he was holding something from the little girl. The escaped murderer came into the classroom smiling from ear to ear. The children were trapped inside. All that could be heard in the corridors of the school were screams of terror and squeals of pain. In the chaos, the teacher managed to break a window and jump out. She barely escaped with her life and crawled to safety. The children, however, were not so lucky. When the police arrived, they found the murderer sitting in the middle of the classroom. The floors, walls, and ceiling were covered in blood. Unfortunately, the kids didn't get away. The police figured out what had probably happened that cold October day. The escaped prisoner must have been hiding in the bathroom when the little girl was asking for permission to go to the bathroom. He must have surprised her in the stall and forced her to tell him the password. And then he did something horrible to her. Today, the teacher is in a psychiatric hospital. She never recovered from the incident and can't stop repeating over and over, tap, 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 scratch, scratch. The school was abandoned because parents refused to send their children there. There were too many bad memories. The school was left just the way it was when the murders occurred. They say that if you visit the old school building and go into the classroom, you can still see the blood still dripping down the walls. At least the dried up blood, you can see where it dripped. If you are brave enough, you could even go to the bathroom. Just tap 3 times, scratch 2 times, in the door in the 3rd stall, then open it. You would see the headless body, something you would never want to see again. I'm a woman who has been a practitioner of witchcraft since childhood, and I'm a psychic medium. well, spirit shaman. For privacy, you can call me Jane. This happened about 15 years ago. I was attending a Halloween party at a shop I frequented for magic items and powders. I'm not the type who harms with my magic because I don't believe in harming anyone. Innocent. Anyway, I was talking with this lady, the lady who ran the shop, a fortune teller whose name I can't recall. I ended up doing a reading of fortunes for the party guests and for her, answering questions correctly that I couldn't possibly know, while she answered mine incorrectly. Although she was angry, the next day, I showed her what I promised to show her daughter, who ran the shop with her. It was an old copy of her Necronomicon, which belongs to my father. The daughter was fascinated, but the mother was stunned at how detailed the book was. She finally asked if she could purchase it. I politely declined several offers, making her desperate. Her kind daughter tried to get her to stop, but she was determined. I got up to leave and she yelled at me, "Wait, final offer. Give me an hour and I'll have it. 10 grand, cash. I must have that book." I said no, and I took away my book and left the shop. After walking away a bit, I saw her roaring in anger, practically tearing her hair out while her daughter begged her to calm down. That night I began hearing strange noises outside my window. It was like a wild animal scratching and sniffing and moving around. I opened my window and blinds and I let out a gasp. On my front lawn sat a strange-looking creature staring at my house. It was squatting on its heels and was visible, despite that it was midnight. Its body was like that of a gargoyle, a short body with muscles. It had glowing eyes, no hair, dark skin. It suddenly stood up, and it was at least 6 feet tall, and had large fingernails and toenails. I could see it smile slowly, and suddenly it dashed forward, stopping at my window. It tapped my wall slowly, its breath fogging the window. It suddenly stopped and let out a guttural growl before it disappeared, leaving me wondering what I just seen. I didn't get any sleep that night. The next morning, I saw small marks on the walls of the window where it had tapped its nails at. Later, I visited the shop and I saw the mother waiting for me. Next to her, I saw the very same creature, patting it. She said, "I wanted that book. Hand it over, or he'll be sent to you again." I was not afraid, I said to her, and I asked her if that all she got. I snapped my fingers, feeling my allies appear on my sides. "I told you that I'm a shaman, ma'am," and I told the lady to leave me alone. Suddenly, the creature looked scared, shaking its head. It saying to the woman, No, I cannot. It let out a final guttural noise before vanishing. The woman told me that I'd won, to take care of the book, and asked to be spared my wrath. And I told her, "If you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone." I promised her that. A few months later, the shop was abandoned, and remains so now. I never knew what happened to that woman or her daughter, but thankfully I wasn't bothered by anything supernatural again. For years I wondered what happened. I learned a lesson also about telling people what I am, and about showing items I shouldn't. The book remains with me today, and I'll never sell it, no matter what they send to me to convince me. This is a real story, and I understand how it sounds, but please believe me,